When I first met Intezar Abioto, I'll never forget her commenting that Portland is like a city that the civil rights movement passed by. Intezar being from Memphis and me being a lifelong Oregonian, I thought it was fascinating. This was in 2013. We've since become friends and collaborated on a variety of projects. The conversations around transplants, meanwhile, have seemingly only intensified. Go to any Black Portlander social media page and you think we're in the midst of a civil war. Considering how spread out Black Oregonians are, it makes sense. Between Oregon's history as the only state to pass Black exclusion laws, decades of gentrification policies, and general economic conditions, add in the pandemic, it's easy to see how these discussions have moved more online and gotten more polarizing. But are these tensions really that bad? We brought together Black Oregonians from a variety of backgrounds and perspectives to hash it out.
Oh wow.
Knowing we were going into a discussion based on division, we made a conscious decision to make the whole production as Black as possible. We partnered with Ifani Bell and Open Signal Labs to shoot the dinner with a predominantly Black film crew. We also received a sponsorship from Imagine Black to support renting out a Black owned location, Luiza PDX, and order catering from a Black owned food cart, Meals for Heels. Imagine Black utilizes a Black queer feminist lens to imagine alternatives that serve the Black community and build political participation and leadership to achieve those alternatives. Using this as a guiding light, we entered into the Black Oregon Natives and Transplants dinner. Just quickly, just want to go around, introduce ourselves. So I'll start with myself. My name is Bruce. I use he, his pronouns. I'm a writer, and I've lived in Oregon all my life, so that's 33 years. Go to my left.
I'm Ken Jones, he, him. I'm a content creator, media maven. I think that's the easiest way to put it. I've been here for 10 years.
Like, my name is Intezar Abioto. I'm a photographer, writer, and dancer, originally from Tennessee, from Memphis. Been here for 12 years.
Bobby Folder, visual and performing artist, second generation. Oregonian, second generation. I'm 71. Don't I look good?
Very good. I am Dahlia Bell. I've been in Portland for 20 years, and I am a stand-up comedian and writer.
So, my name is Salome or Salome. I use she, her pronouns. Born and raised here in Portland, Oregon, but my family immigrated here right before I was born from Angola, Africa.
Awesome. My name is Crystal Chanel. I am an entrepreneur. I've been in business since 2013, and I moved to Portland about 2.5 years ago.
And I forgot to say, I use all the pronouns, so go for it.
Look, I forgot to say what I do for a living, but
Charter Commission, no big deal.
look, I was like, I don't know if I want to list that stuff.
So let's just jump into it. You know, if you're on any of these like online Black Oregonian, Black Portlander groups, you might as well think like there's like a civil war between transplants and Black people born here. So my question would just be, one, what is behind that tension, and is that tension perceived more than reality?
I would like to speak to that. I believe it's our educational system, because you would get that information if it came to you through your classroom. And it is part of this U.S. history that is erased. I don't care what you call it, but it's part of that information that we're used to passing the information down from generation to generation. Well, when you come and you don't get it, then you could step on somebody's toes you don't know. All these things can transpire that aren't really caused by us, but we end up causing harm to each other.
I would say that I feel like a lot of it is based off the individual. I think that at the end of the day, we're all hungry for a community. We're all hungry for people to respect us, for people to acknowledge our existence. And I find that it's easier to take up that gripe and take up that anger with somebody who looks like you or is also marginalized than it is to be mad at the systems that be and the people in power that hold us apart. And so I feel like whenever I see stuff like that, like, you know, if someone is a transplant, I'm just like, dog, you need a hug, you need to hang out, like, you need a friend. I get it. Like, this place is really white, and you're like feeling like, why isn't nobody coming to like make sure that I'm okay? It's like, I got you. Like, we can work on that. And then, you know, folks who are, you know, native Portlander, I think sometimes it's easy to forget that there's always everyday new black people moving to Portland.
Right.
And it's like, there's just so many of them. It's like, how do I even start to reach out to one? What do you even like? Do you like the same stuff I like? Like, are we even gonna gel? And I think that that is something that's hard to do. Because, I mean, I would say that that's the weird thing with where my experience has been, is I'm a native Oregonian, but the rest of my family is not. And like, even between me and the rest of my siblings, that experience does make a difference depending upon how you were welcomed or how you weren't welcomed, and how you perceive the rest of the world after that.
I'll be honest. I had never lived on the West Coast at all before moving here, and they make niggas different out here. They really do. I was not.
Say that.
When I first got out here, I didn't know quite how to move about in Portland. It's soft, which is nice. Like, I feel very safe here all the time, which is really weird when I'm moving from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I think that kind of catches some people off guard, especially if they're coming from like the East Coast or the Midwest or Deep South, and we're kind of used to scrapping. And you don't seem to be so much out here, or for dancing or living. Really. I don't know. Y'all seem a lot more inhibited.
I'm like, who are you gonna scrap though? There's like not that many black people here. Like, if we start scrapping each other, there ain't gonna be no niggas left. Like, I feel like after a certain point, so you have to just learn how to get along and be like, all right, dog, I see you. Like, we ain't gonna talk though, but I see you though.
No, but I haven't even had to like knock out a white person since moving here. Like, it's
Like, then you've been
it's
meeting
real
the right
soft
type of
out
white
here.
people. Then, 'cause I've knocked out plenty. I have knocked out plenty. You've met the right white people. Then show me where them white people at.
Back to my cornbread.
So I'm gonna speak to that. Like, I got a unique experience being here. I don't have the Portland is X. Portland showed me love. I didn't got in and been able to maneuver around here greatly, and I think it's because when I came here, I didn't expect us to be home. And I think there's a lot of people show up with this idea of what it's not. Like, yeah, it's not home. It's not gonna be the things that you're used to where you're from. And I think people get caught up in that whole thing. And if you have the ability to actually adapt and maneuver, and you're trying to do something, right? This is green, and there's a lot of places you can get being here. I was supposed to be here 6 months. Yeah, here we are a decade later. This has done a lot of things to put me in positions. Unique experience. And I know the people from the Grimies all the way up, and they rock. And I think that's been the approach. So I'm gonna deal out of a space of respect first off. If that isn't a mutual thing, then we can take it from there. But that's been my experience here, and I know I argue even with other people that are not from here. I'm from Southern California, so when I meet other heads from down there and we get going back and forth, they're kind of like, it's not exactly, it's not. This is why you moved.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's my piece.
I guess I'm going to an event on Wednesday. Matter of fact, I'm hosting an event on Wednesday for Native Oregonians and transplants to connect and mix. So I think that to ignore that there is something there is weird to me. I think that there's definitely when I got here, there was a clear divide amongst natives and transplants, and I found that to be weird, extremely bothersome, because I'm a young lady who likes to build community. So for me, it was glaring. It wasn't nothing I could ignore. And I, like you, came under great circumstances. I mean, I won't name drop right now. I think it's too early for that. but I am moving. But I'm moving and shaking as an entrepreneur with probably everybody in the city that is worth their weight in salt, or they're doing their thing. But again, I had to work really hard to get beyond that stigma of you're a transplant. And I think, sometimes we may feel like somebody just came in our city or our state and they're making moves or they're doing something. There's some sort of tension, there's some sort of jealousy. And I think that all of that is fake. And I think that there's room for us. That's why I love this conversation, Bruce, because I think there's room for the folks who are the pillars in the community, such as yourself, to bring it to the forefront, right? Because once it's in the forefront, then it kind of can have an opportunity to go away, to be discussed. Yeah, like let's shine a light on this, because there's no difference between me and you, native transplant. I'm not really sure why that even becomes a conversation. It creates this extra layer of divide that we actually do not need and can't even afford as a community. So for me, everywhere I go, I don't hide, I don't pretend like it doesn't exist. It exists. And I'm not afraid to speak on it. I'm not afraid to host events so we can get together and do the things that we do. We like to dance, we like to laugh, we like to make people feel good. That's our culture, whether you're a transplant or a native. That's my 2 cents.
I mean, you're gonna find ain't shit niggas everywhere. You just gotta hope that when you move someplace, they're not the first ones you meet. Because I feel like that's the truth. Like, wherever you go, if the first person you meet ain't shit, your whole outlook on that whole community is gonna be y'all ain't shit. Like, and it's so hard too, because like there's so many different black people in Portland that it's impossible for one black person to know every black person. It's impossible for everybody to know all the circles that people run into. I still walk into rooms to this day and people are like, "Oh fuck, you're Chimuku. I didn't even know they had a girl." But it's those connections that I think make the difference in people's experience, whether they be a transplant or a native. Just like if the first transplant I meet is gonna just sit here and tell me how we ain't got real soul food, I'm just like,
Excuse me.
like you can go to somebody's house and get us a plate. Like, you need a plate? I got some contacts for you. Like,
Okay. It's on top of the refrigerator.
right?
And ain't nobody touched it. Right? I think it's also your environment too, though, because I'm going through a situation right now where the people who I'm working with just don't understand. And it doesn't matter how many languages I say it in, because I code switch on a regular basis to classrooms. So I know I can say it in the language, but they're not supportive of anything like this and have no conceptual base to even reference it. And so that also makes it kind of difficult to come out of that place when you don't have a place to go to.
It's interesting because, again, I feel like I sit as a transplant and a native, to be honest. And I have friends who just moved here to Oregon, and just simple things like getting your hair done is a frustration for an East Coast person.
That's what I'm saying.
So let's just go simple. You know what I mean? And I think, again, there's room that if I'm new here and I come to you and I say, man, I'm having a hard time getting my hair done, I think there's room. Give me the resources. Because again, we can't afford for you to put another layer up and go back to the East Coast. Get your hair done there. I mean, because the reality is, if we want to do this, when I first moved here, I did fly back home to get my hair done. It was just easier to take an 8-hour flight to South Florida than to go through the weird things with hairdressers. It was just easier. And I think, again, there's space, there's room to have hairdressers come to the table. You know what I mean? When we think about who hairdressers really are and what they mean to your community, these are folks who are typically making 6 figures. That means these are the folks that are sponsoring your events. These are the folks whose kids are at your school and they can take off and be a part of the PTA meeting. These are the folks that you've got to support, right? But if I can't reach you, because your style seat just put up another block, we are missing the opportunity to build. And for me, I'm in Oregon to build by any means necessary.
That makes so much sense. You're making me go back into my younger years, and it's like, yeah, I can go to that barber, that drug dealer, that. I mean, because I could. That's how it was. That's how it was done. I could go to the speakeasy that was open at 2 a.m. in the morning and get the funding I need, because they, you know, oh yeah, well, I wasn't Mr. Bobby then, I was just Bobby. Yeah, Bobby, what you doing? Okay, here, take this, you know, and it's a little frustrating as a senior elder dinosaur to watch this go down like this, you know, and know that there's people out here wanting those things, you know.
I think the more we bring these conversations to the forefront, the better it is for us. Like I said, Wednesday night I'm hosting an event at a Black-owned restaurant on Mafi's with the Black-owned organization that's sponsoring, and then we're highlighting to transplants that just moved here. Why? So they can get the support they need. Little things like how do you do your hair? Who washes your car? Those little things need to be public knowledge within the community.
It's almost like the Black Book all over again. Oh no, the Green Book, I'm sorry.
Right.
Well, now we can call it the Black Book.
Well, I mean, there's also this huge undercurrent that I think can't be ignored, which is whenever you're transplant anywhere, you rely on the folks who are native to tell you how the white people are in the area and how you can be as a black person and survive in the area. Because, I mean, it's different no matter where you go. That's why I say, I don't think this is built different. Like, because the environment's different, and how you survive as a black person in an environment looks different in Oregon versus in Connecticut versus in Texas. And, I mean, I still remember very deeply how much my father ingrained in me that when they first immigrated to the United States and were placed in Jacksonville, Florida, my dad was like, racism looks different in the U.S. than it does in Africa. It's still racism, but I had to ask other people, how do I navigate this? What are the do's and don'ts? What are the streets that I walk on? What are the streets I don't walk on? Who are the people I can talk to? Who can I not talk to? And can I make eye contact? Can I not make eye contact? Those small little things really do shape someone's survival in an area. And I think that that's something that still to this day is so crucial to survival. Like, you can't, I mean, at a certain point, I mean, you walk in here in Oregon as a black transplant, you're like, oh, I can sometimes get away with cussing out a white person and be all right. Ooh, that's different. This tastes different.
Exactly.
It feels different.
Yeah.
And other times you're like, wait, so I just have to deal with people being passive aggressive.
Yeah.
How do I deal with that?
Yeah.
Because I'm used to motherfuckers telling me in my face, like, get the hell out of my face back, bitch. And I'm like, wait, okay, I understand. I'm not used to somebody who's like, yeah, let me come help you. And then there's systemic barriers left and right that stop me from succeeding and makes me feel like I failed as an individual and not see the racism because it's presented in a different way.
By default, don't trust white people, so that saves me some time.
Oh, that's a given. That's definitely a given. I'm just saying that it looks different.
Yeah, but here you
But
can go.
honestly,
How many of you are there?
personally, growing up in the Midwest and East Coast in the 80s and 90s, I prefer the Portland black culture. It's more diverse actually in practice because you can just do anything here. No one really cares that much. No one's looking at me sideways here, which was definitely not the case in the Midwest. So I'm fine with it, but I do think it can be a culture shock for some people.
Always room for improvement.
You know, that kind of brings me to the next part of this conversation. And, you know, Intezar, when we first met, you said something that stuck with me, and I remind you all the time, too. But, yeah, this was, 2013, I want to say? And I was just interviewing you about the Black Portlanders Project, which since it's gone on to, win awards and all that. So, just wanted to give you your flowers on that. But one of the things you said initially was that Portland was like a city that the civil rights movement passed over. And I just wanted to kind of reflect on that, or have you, reflect on, as someone who's done so much documentation of Black life, not just in Portland, but in Oregon, has that changed at all? Has that, been even more ingrained?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. That was maybe that was 9 years ago. And I feel the same and different. You know, you like learn like more about people's efforts. And I feel like I always try to approach my experience here as someone who's been here for 12 years, but is also a transplant. It's just like a practice of acknowledgement of like people's efforts. And yeah, I mean, at the time, I think there were things happening with black children being taken from black like families, and there was like I feel like over on like where Cason's is now, like before the development, there were like black families that were like protesting. And so I remember talking to my mom about that, who works in the law, you know, and just about like strategy. And so yes, I mean, I feel that in some ways, because you'll hear stories here, you'll be like, what the hell, you know? It's like, whether it's like kind of like learning about like about Williams Avenue before, you know, it's like these weird ghost stories, and then you're like, you know, and I do feel that way, but I also want to acknowledge like the efforts of like black people here. You know, whether it was like I believe the Public Accommodations Act. I feel like that was either NAACP or like the
Urban League.
yes, in like 53. So yes and no, you know, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, how do you all feel about, you know, the state of things?
I know some of it is the myth, the legend versus reality and the truth, where you can interview specific people in the community and never get the whole story, or get favorite sides of the story, which that's in every culture, okay? Whoever the griots are in the culture, they change some things according to their family memory. And so that's common, and that's one of the pieces that helps contribute to the divide. It's because, well, the 5 families who weren't in that book that you're reading right now that they're publicizing so much were here 20 years before those others, you know. So it just gets to be a little juggling piece of digging like you've done to pull those things out so that people have that history in the archive.
I mean, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, you go.
I was gonna say, it just made me think about how even within the civil rights movement, there were stories that even our community chose to highlight, and others that we didn't. People that we chose to be spoken about, and people that were like, your image is not good enough for like what we think we want people to think about when they think about black people. And I think that in and of itself is of course problematic, but I think it goes back to, again, Black Portland, Black Oregon is so vast and large that it sometimes can be disheartening when someone makes the assumption that because I haven't heard about you, you're not doing stuff in the community. Like, I still walk around and people are like, oh yeah, well, what do you do? It's like, you know, co-founded the Black Resilience Fund, raised $3 million for Black Portlanders, sit on the Portland Charter Commission. But I'm like, damn, nigga, what the fuck else I gotta do? like, it's just for you to assume that I might be all right. And so, like, there's also that weirdness that I think that some people get when they hear someone trying to start something, and as opposed to going, that's a great idea, let me help you out, they're like, oh, somebody else is already doing that. And it's like, well, maybe I didn't know somebody else is already doing that. And or else I wouldn't have started my own thing over here. Like, to your event Wednesday, it's so easy for someone else to go like, oh, why didn't you just link up with Say Hey and just like start something there? It's like, bruh, clearly, there's still a need and a niche, and it doesn't take just one person to fill it. It takes the entire community to fill it, of all different types of events. And I think that that's something that I think about when you said like it passed Portland by. It did. It definitely did, and it continues to do so until I think people are willing to let go of this idea of what it means to be the model Negro, what it means to be a leader, what kind of person it takes to be a leader. And I think that until we start telling like the whole truth, like you said, Mr. Bobby, we're never gonna see leaders emerge in the way that we tend to glorify and spick and span up our leaders of the past, because we're never gonna hold anybody to that. No one can hold a light to that candle because you know too much about them to be like, oh, you can't be like Malcolm X because you got baby mama drama down the street, or you cussed out your mother on Tuesday at the cruisers down the way, and I saw that. Like, who's to say Malcolm X never done that? Like, so
see, that's what makes
probably
this
did.
group amazing, because like all of you are like doing things for the community, and everyone knows I'm just a drunk hoe, and
well, first of all, you can do both. As someone who experiences and loves the ratchet, thank you very much. As my mother, 30 plus with no babies and live in a house by myself, I enjoy the whole life. Let's not get it twisted. The whole life is grand. You can do both.
Oh, I can't go there.
I mean, I'm servicing any man that can afford it, but it's not.
All the shit sometimes people give away for free. Let's not even go there.
It's two things I want to piggyback on what you were saying. I think that one, you say that Oregon kind of missed the civil rights movement. I look at it, I love that analogy, by the way. I'm like, oh, okay. I look at it like Portland is like a small church. I don't know if anybody ever went to a small church. And in a small church, all these weird conversations come up because you're so familiar with Sister Mary Clarence. You know her whole family. And so there's all this drama that keeps up at small churches because we know each other. That's kind of how I look at Portland. Like everybody kind of knows each other. They've seen each other. I know your cousin. I know your auntie. That's my brother.
Grandchildren of the children
Right.
I taught.
All of that. And so then there's this familiarity, like, oh, I'm not gonna let you be a star. You might have done this, and that, but I know you and I know your past. And I think that we have to grow up. We've got to grow up. Everybody has a past. Everybody has a story. There's nobody perfect, but we all bring something to the culture.
Some of us have a
Air
present.
five to you, girl.
That's
some
why
of us
you
have
all
a
my
present.
ratchet shit up front.
That was way.
And then as Black community, how sometimes we have like all these secrets that we just don't let things out. I feel like Oregon has more secrets than almost anywhere I've ever been. And we're holding it really tight. And some of those things are the things that are gonna help us heal and get to the other side. So it's gonna be interesting to see how we deal as a community, because culturally, whether you're in Oregon, Florida, New York, DC, we keep secrets as a culture. I think the difference is over here, it's just such a small population. We've got to let go of some of these secrets that hold us back.
Thank you for your permission. I'm letting them out.
Well, I think that's also the benefit of being in Portland is there's enough of us to where there's the diversity, there's the differences, but there's not so many of us that we can sweep things under the rug and avoid problems.
No.
And so it forces us to have to talk about it, forces us to have to deal with it. And I think that makes us stronger for it.
Will you end up marrying your cousin?
First of all, we're not even.
Then there's that.
Look,
Then that happens.
first of all, you may want to take that conversation over there in Alberta and 50.
It's all more streets than that.
Oh, I know it.
Because that's how I'm loving this right here, because it's just making me think of so many things, having been here all these years and watched all these changes. And it's like the civil rights movement. Well, when there was riots, we had a riot. It was 2 blocks away on around Dawson Park and but it happened, okay, right? And the police have always been a problem. So, there's good and bad out of everything. But it's not like things didn't happen. It's the way they happened. That came to a community that was fresh out of, and by fresh I mean 20 years behind, out of the Vanport flood, where people lost everything, so they didn't want their children to go through that ever again, so they started treating their children different in order to not experience what they experience. I mean, everything's got so many layers to it that unless you do the research, it's really hard to define where it begins and where it ends. You know, we all know we're black, okay?
Tell that to
Except for some street light people who are.
Like, I still get fought with that every time. Like, oh, you're African, you're not really black. I'm like, what?
Oh,
Okay.
You're
That
not
doesn't make
light.
any sense at all.
Look, I'm like you tell that to the white people over there, because they've been beating my ass since I got here.
You're so different.
I was like, where do you think y'all came from?
Yeah,
like, I'm
that's-
just, okay.
that
Well,
is
that's
a
how we
weird
feel.
mentality.
That's how we feel.
That's like the other layer to the conversation, though, because I think about it again, like lifelong Oregonian, but like I'm from Lake Oswego, so I
Lake
might as well
no
be from
Negro.
another planet to most people.
Late no Negro.
Right. So that's a great takeoff point, though, because when we talk about, we started this conversation talking about, well, the I guess online discourse over, like Oregon natives and transplants, but another big topic of discussion right now is abolition, whether it be, abolishing prisons, abolishing the police, whether it be a more amorphous description of abolition. That's really a conversation around, what does freedom look like? What does autonomy look like for Black people in Oregon? And to that point about Lake Oswego, it makes me also think about, be it where we've came to Oregon from or where we are, like, how does that influence how you see yourself in that conversation? If that makes sense to anyone.
I'll start it off. I'm a talker, I guess.
I was like, I didn't think about that for a second. Translate that in my brain. I'm like, huh?
The way I understood your question, like, how does Oregon impact you as a Black person in the context of freedom? That's how I understood the question.
Well, I guess specifically how does, I guess location. I'm not sure if that's making it any clearer.
I know for me, Oregon has been a place where I feel like I'm becoming a better person. I feel like just being in the South, I was very closed-minded because that's all I knew and that's all I was surrounded by. And in the South, we are very, I'm generalizing, so if you're watching this and you're from the South and this isn't you, I get it.
You can click that mute button. Click that mute.
But we can be very rushy. We can be, very, very just anxious and ready. And I think we also disregard people who have maybe different pronouns or just a different speed. There's just a lot of intolerance. And that came naturally. I didn't know I was being intolerant. That was just naturally who I was. And so here, I get an opportunity to take a step back and send nicer emails and be more pleasant on the phone and be very conscious of your pronouns and just a lot of things that make us human and I feel like make the other person feel heard. And Oregon is teaching me that. And I love Oregon for that. So I think there's room to get closer to real freedom when you truly value everybody. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
I work for quotes.
Quotes. I'll take a stab at it. I mean, I think when I think about freedom, it's different, and I realize that my perception on even just the word freedom is rooted in the fact that English is not my first language. And I know so many other different languages that have certain words for phrases and things that don't exist in English. So that changes my perception on just even the word freedom, of what does that truly mean at the very bottom of it. And for me, I think about freedom as the right to exist without anything else. Because oftentimes I think that even as a woman, it's your right to exist extends to you're somebody's mother, you're somebody's sister, you're somebody's something. In essence, to exist in Blackness can sometimes feel like you have to exist in Blackness in what is not Black. And you spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out what's not Black so I can figure out what is Black. And I feel like true freedom is just the right to exist, period, without anything else, without being reliant on anything, without an other, without a separation, just existence. That freedom to just exist fully as who you are as a person and what you want to do with your life. And I think that it's really hard sometimes when we're in a place where we're not feeling as free and seeing someone else living their truth. It makes it really hard to the point where it almost feels like it's antagonizing us. And we feel a need to just insert ourselves and be aggressive. And it is really hard, I think, for me talking about being in Oregon and what freedom looks like, knowing that my experience is raised by a man who was a child soldier and two parents who went through a civil war and a war for independence. I'm like, oh, we can scrap out any day of the week. Like, my family moved countries over this issue. I'll move across the street. Like, I don't give a damn. That ain't shit. And so, like, even with me in that thought process, I think about abolitionism, abolishing the police, abolishing jail systems, and all that kind of stuff is, I'm definitely a proponent of it. But when I hear someone who is not, someone's like, well, I'm really for reform, or like, we just got to change some stuff, I'm like, you don't even know what freedom even looks like. You can't even imagine it. You can't even imagine a world where police are unnecessary, because that's how much is going on in your life right now that's not even a thought process for you. It's not even like a practice in theory. And so for me, like, it's like, where can we get people to taste freedom in some aspect so they can think about freedom in other places and what it means for other people and for themselves fuller. And so that's my way of going about it.
And I think that does, at times, I don't know, direct more of the pro-blackness that I've encountered since moving here, that I do not encounter as much elsewhere, where you are looking into this much larger, almost, from my perspective, utopian vision, as opposed to, as long as my lights don't get cut off, or the police don't come around this block. You know, those were the sorts of concerns in other places I've lived, or just from my vocal patterns, from the fact that I am this. Elsewhere, that was enough to disqualify me from blackness. Whereas in Portland, no one says shit. So I think that allows Black people in Portland to perhaps dream a little larger than in a lot of other places.
So I can follow up with that, because that's, I think, a point on a personal level, thinking of the freedom of, like, the ignorance is bliss. Like, me moving here, maneuvering around the way in which I did, I don't know what the boundaries are, so I'm just showing up. I know all the politics at home, so I know I can't do certain things. So here, that wasn't there, so I was able to maneuver through this city, and that's kind of how I built up the network in which I have. And I think there's something to that also in the just, like, I joke about these being trophies, okay? So a lot of people don't get to that point where I'm from. And so with that understanding, it's like, I got bubbles in my car right now. I'd be at stoplights, like, that might seem corny as hell, but this is the freedom of, though I didn't play with this stuff when I was a kid, it actually seemed fun as fuck. So I would grab them, right? It's little things in which I feel like I've made it to a point here that it gave me that comfort of having to sit down and really fall back. The idea of being slower, and I always try to make sure I articulate when I'm talking slower. It's not like people are stupid or they think slower. It's the idea that you just don't have to pay attention to as many things in this place, and that's more of it. Anyways, with that, getting here and being able to sit back and relax, and being able then to start thinking about, okay, what do I want to do? I'm away from the homies, I'm away from home, I'm away from what's familiar. So what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do it the same way, do something different. And again, the doors have been open and it's been a path that's been built. So I think that's the type of freedom now, understanding that. Now, if I had that experience, 15 years prior, this could be a whole different lifestyle for me, So I can't say that that's a plus. I don't regret I hated it for the first 6 months of being here, just because I was like, I'm ready to go, and it wasn't so much a here, it was just not being where I was at.
Yeah.
And so,
And it was raining. You were on your way out, and then it started raining.
Waiting for Usher to come out to the middle of the street. No Usher. Not even Omarion.
But just, you know, having that, there's an appreciation that I gained for it after that. Once I started looking at it like, I'm with what's going on here, it worked out. And again, through the time, like I like talking to the old heads, like having conversations about what was. Because we talked to gentrification, all the things going on. I know even when I got here, at that point, brought a couple of my cars down here. I used to love riding up and down this MLK at that point on these sunny days, enjoying that bit of culture. And I moved straight to the west side. I've been in Beaverton since day one. And so my experience out there is a little, it's a little different. But it's just, there is a certain level of peace here, and that's why sometimes I have conversations with natives in their frustrations, and it's like, are you able to see, like, there is the opportunity, but then I have to also remember that you're also carrying all the knowledge of here.
Right.
Well, I also think that speaking about appreciation too, I don't think we can always look to it as because someone has the time to think about this because other things are stable, that they can dream bigger. I think about it also from the other end of it, where somebody had absolutely garbage nothing, and they finally got to a place where things are okay, and they're willing to scrap life or death for it to have their little bit of something okay. Because that's where I come from because I think about the perspective of like my family, my immediate relatives who are still in Africa, and their life versus mine. And like even seeing how my family, you know, they're not the richest people in the world, but compared to when we first got here to where some of us are now today, I think that is that taste of freedom that people need to be willing to think even bigger of like, how can I do even more and it go beyond me, but to my community. And like, if people just got a taste of that, they'd be so willing to fight for it if they knew even just what that even felt like, even for a second. Because so many people are just kind of in this struggle that they just don't ever get that moment of reprieve. And sometimes it could even be something as simple as someone else acknowledging their full existence that gives them that taste of that freedom. And they're like, oh, well, no, I'm going to scrap for this outside my house. Like, I'll tell you right now, my rules in my house, I don't argue with nobody for nothing in my fucking house. If you're in my house, we're going to figure it out. We ain't arguing not a goddamn moment because I argue with everybody as soon as I walk outside my door. Like, I ain't doing it inside my house. And so I think that expanding that kind of tenacity for wanting more and wanting better for the community is what we got to give people a taste of. Because I mean, when I did interviews for the Black Resilience Fund, and people were just floored by the fact that I wasn't asking to see their ID, I wasn't asking like, who's your mama? I wasn't asking for no social security number, no nothing. It's like, boom, here's your check. And they're like, well, you know, I know what I need to use for them. Do I gotta send a receipt for my bill? I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, I don't care about that. You better go and do something with this money and just go on about your life. Like, this is 5 minutes. All I need was just for you to say, hey, yeah, this is my name and this is my address, and verify it before I cut the check. Like, that's all we cared about. And so I think that radical level of acceptance, I think, really did make a big difference in people's minds on what they were willing to accept from other sources that were, quote unquote, trying to help them. And that exploitation with receiving help.
Change the narrative.
Yeah, exactly. Change that narrative, change the expectation.
I think because my family has been here for 96 years, it became ingrained in my mom that we learned how to scrap. Because to be a black male artist in the Northwest, I truly tell some people I beat a living out of this Northwest area. Okay? Because, and that was at home. I was given that tenacity at home, you know. And it just did make the world very different for me because no, I don't play basketball or football. I like ice skating, okay, and gymnastics. Leave me alone. Kind of attitude didn't faze me along the way because I could be at home and do multiple things like get things I needed that would be thousands of dollars elsewhere for like 200. Okay, so I saw the value in all of those advantage points from being here, like your bubbles in the car. You know, I had to search for them bubbles because I was talked about. Just the list, the gamut is endless. But we're all experiencing that, which I think is really, really unique that we can sit at the table and talk about it, because now we're all seeing how similar we are, which is the bigger conversation that the community needs to be having. So, what are we talking about?
Oh, that's a great
That's a great segue.
It's not hard to be black. It's hard to endure what black people have to go through.
That's powerful.
So before we get out of here, I just want to acknowledge that, the big theme of us doing this is building community. So we got people born in Oregon, transplants, we're in a black-owned restaurant, we got catered from another black-owned eatery, we have black film crew, and we're just showing that, obviously we can do this, we don't need to prove that to anybody, but I just want to acknowledge that because I think it's really important before we get out of here. But with that said, I'd just like to open it up to all of you if you have any final thoughts before we get out of here.
I would just like to say that this meal was delicious from Meals for Heels. That's a shameless plug, but it needed to be happening because the cornbread was magnificent.
I think that's such a good point, Bobby. We need to do more shameless plugging. If it were up to me to give a solution, we need to say more about what we're doing. I think we've been taught that is braggadocious or boisterous, but I think it's important for the next generation to see what we're doing and what we're capable of. But it's also important for our peers in our community to know how they can tap in and help us. So I would just love to see us be our own media. If mainstream won't say it, then we've got to do it. We've got to hire black photographers, black videographers. We've really got to kind of bring it in and share our stories on a wider spectrum.
I'm all for shameless plugging, so I think more black men should have sex with me. And I think that...
That's one way to plug in.
Yeah, I'm just trying to draw in the community. That's...
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I got a vision.
Yeah.
I mean, it all takes us all doing things differently, right?
Exactly.
Trying new things. Okay.
I mean, I appreciate it just because I always think about blackness being so vast. It encompasses everything, and it's one of the few things that encompasses everything. So the fact that we have people around the table that are in different areas of expertise is just so enriching that I think that we sometimes can take for granted. Like, I mean, there's 8 niggas deep in my family, and we all do something different, and it's so helpful because when shit goes wrong in my house, I can call up my brother and be like, Tony, Peter, I don't know what the fuck going on in this room, a wall came down, pipe bursted here, and they come and fix it. I can be like, hey Jesse, I got this event happening for one of the clients at my consulting firm, they need a caterer, can you come through? And just being able to have those relationships and those contacts and everybody being free to do what they would like to do means that we have an unlimited tapped resource of black people who do it. And so that's what I love to see, is just black people finding their passions, because we need everybody doing everything to get even closer to where we want to be.
And finding each other.
Or in my case, doing everybody.
Well, first of all, we're going to have to fight about that. I mean, leave some for the rest of us. Shit.
I'm ambitious.
I mean, you can be ambitious too. I just said leave
I'm
some
an
shit for the rest of
overachiever.
us. Look, see, I don't discriminate on gender. Anybody black can come this way.
Yeah.
Like, we're good. I'll MacGyver that shit. We'll work with whatever parts you got. I'll figure it out.
I like you. We're friends now.
Well, this was family.
Credits will roll in post.
I'm like, how you gonna do
I'm
this,
related to
Bruce?
cameraman. This is a wrap, right? Like, I gotta take somebody home real quick. This is a wrap, we good?
This is building family. So, I mean, how else is it supposed to go? you know?
Exactly.
I'm gonna plug in the numbers. 96.7 FM. If y'all are not familiar, it's the Black radio station here. We submit community playlists. Y'all get what y'all want to hear. Blackness is not a monolith, so it's what you actually listen to, and that's what we put in the mix. Also, we are in collaboration with the Portland Art Museum. On the 4th floor, we have the Oxmute Gallery. If you guys are ever down there and want to check
You
that
bought
out.
my mentee's painting. Yes, very good.
Happy
Thank
to
you.
go.
That's how you do it, people. You buy each other's shit.
Come on, it's baby.
Keep the money black.
$1.
He said shit.
Exactly.
Good representation right here.
Okay. So, okay. And yeah, let me do it. Mr. Bobby or Mr. B, I'm on social media. You can find me. Find me. There's stuff going on.
I
Tomorrow.
don't know if you want to find me.
But I know where she lives.
Plenty can know where I live. Depending on about where you find me, it'd be a whole other situation.
Oh, you've been so quiet. I ain't telling nobody.
Let's see. What am I doing? Art things.
So many things.
I'm curating a show about Black artists over at the Portland Art Museum. So we'll kind of be working together on a few things. So yeah, just excitement about you all, and I think that these conversations about like are important to kind of open up the kind of like festering feelings for it to be possibility and imagination. That's like the creative aspect of it. Like we get to kind of shake things up. So yeah.
That's how we met. And we've been collaborating ever since. 4 years.
9 years.
And
so
now there's a bunch more people sitting at the table.
You act like we didn't meet at a bar. Like we ain't met before.
well,
like really, like don't.
we were
don't
meeting on my social time, girl. Watch out.
You see how they do you like that?
But well, yeah, she's creating something for me. So, but that's a secret.
Yeah, it's extra.
Oh, listen, let me plug press release marketing. So listen, press release marketing is my company. We do marketing for small businesses, and we help their brand be visible in the marketplace. So we work with everybody, all levels, whether you're a restaurant or a private chef, whether you're a gym or a personal trainer. That's what we do. So look us up, justpressrelease.com.
I mean, I work at Espousal Strategy. It's a Black-owned consulting firm. We specialize in public involvement, community engagement, and equity and facilitation. And so it's when I say that, I step outside my house and argue with motherfuckers. That's literally what it's about.
You do. Right.
That's what I do for a living. I don't do it in my personal life. But yeah, definitely look us up. Black-owned, majority Black staff, and it's nice. It's nice.
And you, sir.
Yeah, I guess I can plug myself.
Yeah.
As you should.
Yes, BrucePoinsett.com, patreon.com/BrucePoinsett for content, interviews, essays, exclusive bonus footage of this expanded Blacktastic Adventure project, which people will be able to see in Oregon Humanities coming soon. And I also got a couple shows on the Numbers FM. One, the Blacktastic Adventure, as previously mentioned, as well as the Bruce Poinsett Show. And every Wednesday at 7 p.m. It's the Bruce Block. Don't shake your head over
I'm
there.
shaking my head because I've known you my whole life. I know Bruce Poinsett Senior, and you talking like I'm Bruce Poinsett, like that man dead and gone. I'm like, he's still here. You junior. You junior.
Ain't nothing like having family at the table, y'all. Nothing.
I also gotta help everybody out. Nigel Grant, that's who does your hair. So, everybody, Nigel Grant, look him up.
Okay.
He'll take care of you. He'll
When I stop.
yeah, he'll get us all cleaned up.
Thank you, everyone, again. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
You're such a good role model.
I will say that was one of the best stories ever told to me as a child by a mentor. I was babysitting for my mom's friend, Miss Myra. And she started telling me this story about pimps and hoes. And I was like, Mom, can you come get me? I was like 9. But she made a valid point. She said, you know what? Everybody on the planet is a pimp and a hoe. Okay? And either you have a pimp or as a hoe, you are your own pimp. That way you get to keep all your money. And so that stuck with me to this day.
Clearly.
And I've been a hoe ever since. Beautiful. That's a beautiful story, Mr.
No,
Bobby.
but
Thank
see,
you.
The more you know, just can we put that in post?
This is how I locked it out. We all get paid by other people for the most part, unless you're independently wealthy up in here somewhere. Anybody? Hold your hand up. So therefore, we are working for other people. What do you call that?